Hello, my name is Rebecca Downey,
And I'm Pam Brown.
and this is our PowerPoint that we created with the overview of enrichment and acceleration in the Warren County School District.
The way that we've structured this PowerPoint is to do all of enrichment first and then acceleration second. And within those categories, we're going to talk about the history of enrichment in our district, the history of actually the current status of enrichment in our district, go over the scenario, and then the work that's left to do. And after we do all that with enrichment, we will continue on to acceleration and do all of that with acceleration.
So the enrichment of Warren County has a pretty rich history. For years, they had a program that they prided themselves on. It was a pull-out program where the gifted kids from K to 8 came one day a week from all of the schools to a central location, and they participated in all sorts of just very enriching, fun activities, rigorous and challenging, but not connected to their general education curriculum. There were teachers that taught to their strengths, and the kids really did benefit from it. But the idea in the rest of the district was that enrichment happened at that school over there, and we weren't responsible for it. I would have teachers say, well, they get their enrichment with you. So in 2017, the beginning and transition to a different model. Now teachers are at the building level. We each have our own attendance area, and the central attendance area has 2 teachers in it. But we go into the classrooms, we collaborate with teachers, we are doing both push in and pull out within the buildings, but we also are servicing high achieving students as well as our identified gifted students. We have flexible groups. Our teachers can decide if somebody needs enrichment based on what's going on in class, or if they need to be pulled back out of the group because they need to have just the regular education. The groups are typically data-driven with a combination of teacher recommendation, and everything is connected to the education or the curriculum that is happening in that classroom. However, we did not throw our pull-out program completely away in that transition. We went to what we call gifted enrichment days, event days, and we are still servicing our 3rd through 8th graders in that program. They come on an average of twice a month to a central location. It is identified gifted students with an active GIEP, so they can't be gifted not in need of services at that point. They are with the likability students from across the district, and we do a lot of high interest and STEM focused lessons, as well as educational trips, and our academic competitions also come out of that. And then we are servicing our high schoolers, which do not need to have an active GIEP. They just need to be identified, but they can be gifted not need of services. And they also get educational field trips and academic competitions. So this is a scenario of what an enrichment might look like in our district now. This actually did happen this fall. I was working with a 6th grade science teacher, and he came to me and asked me to do some enrichment, whole group enrichment. And so we talked. We're currently working in a unit that is on minerals, and I designed a research-based project, but I created it with 3 levels of a rubric. We have our mid-level rubric that generally all of the kids are using, and then we have an enriched rubric and a basic rubric to accommodate the kids that need more and the kids that need less. So the enriched version actually included 2 additional research items, and it also had a component where the students needed to cite their sources. All of the students in the advanced ELA class were given the enriched rubric, and the nice thing is then I went into their ELA class and I taught a lesson on citing sources, and we practiced what that was going to look like. I think that all kids need to learn to cite sources at a certain point, but that wasn't the place to necessarily do that with the whole group. And it gave the kids who have ELA goals, or those kids that are in that advanced ELA class, a chance to learn something additional that isn't part of their regular curriculum. And it was cross-curricular, and it was nice that I worked with 2 teachers in that situation, not just one. So the work that we have left to do in our enrichment plans, which are going to be our action plans, is a plan that Rebecca and I are going to work together on, and that is the professional development piece of enrichment. We have done quite a bit of professional development in the last couple of years as we've made these transitions, but our next step is to actually get into the building level at the faculty meetings. We have 3 new people to our staff. There's Rebecca and I, and then with this school year we hired 3 different and new people, and we want to get them out and get them introduced to the staff in general, the whole staff throughout the county, and then we want to just talk about what that enrichment is supposed to look like and how we can be a resource to them and help them with that. Our plan is to also create a PowerPoint that can be put into our teacher shared folders so that everybody in the district can have access to it, and again talk about what enrichment is, what we do in the classroom, how we can support them, how we're a resource to them, and hopefully continue to build those relationships between the teachers. The nice thing is that one of the big concerns in as we were making this transition is that enrichment happens there, and we are trying to help people understand that no, enrichment happens everywhere. Now Rebecca is going to talk about acceleration.
In our district, we have had acceleration as part of our district procedures for many years. Prior to the spring of 2016, there were 2 main ways that students could be accelerated. Students who were already identified with a GIEP, it was part of their GIEP and was spelled out in that and indicated in the NORA. But other students had also been accelerated, and it was based on the discretion of the building administrator in conjunction with teacher recommendations. And that was based basically at the school building level. In addition, at the middle school level, all students before they left the elementary school would have a math placement test, and students could be accelerated because of the results of the the testing for the math placement, and they would also be put into leveled math classes in the middle schools. So that was also something that happened. And students could be accelerated either single subject or full grade level. And again, these were all based on the administration's decision along with teacher input. After spring of 2016, our district adopted an acceleration policy, and the administrators use this to guide acceleration decisions. And so at this point, acceleration is not part of the GIEP process anymore. So during the spring of 2016, our district adopted a separate acceleration policy so that the acceleration would be more consistent throughout our district. In the policy, it's clearly delineates how a student can be accelerated. It is available to all students, whether they're gifted or not. It is led by the building administrator, and it is a team decision. And at the team level, the administrator is a participant as well as the regular ed teacher, parents, and then the gifted instructor can be included in that team upon request. Acceleration can include single subject acceleration or full grade level acceleration, and data is collected to determine if students qualify for acceleration, and it's based on 3 different data points that have to indicate that the student is performing at 2 years above their current placement in that subject area or areas that they will be accelerated to. If they score within a 1 year above, it indicates that they need enrichment, not acceleration, and then that responsibility would fall to the building gifted instructor that's assigned to that building. At this point, students with a GIP can be accelerated, but it would be included in the acceleration policy and not included in the GIP paperwork. The acceleration policy includes several pieces. The first piece is the actual policy, and it just states that acceleration is available to all students in the district and who's responsible. There's a section that lists the criteria and which tests should be administered, what the cutoff scores are for acceleration, and the fact that there needs to be 2 out of 3 data points that are met for a student to be qualified for acceleration. There's a list of available district assessments that can be used in each grade level band for either subject area, English, language arts, or math, or even science at the upper grades. And then there's also a written acceleration plan the administrator is responsible for filling out during the meeting to make sure all pieces of acceleration are discussed and that there's a plan put in place. They make sure that all the data points are listed, what the scores were, and whether they qualify or not. Also during the meeting, input is given from the teacher as well as the parents about social and emotional considerations that might need to be addressed to make acceleration successful. There's teacher and parent input as well, and there's a section for the recommendation from each of the members of the team. And also a section for what supports might be needed to help make the transition a smooth one and how frequently that student may need supported based on their individual needs. There's also a 30-day follow-up meeting that's required, and that's the administrator would facilitate that meeting to also follow up and make sure that the student is successful in the new placement and to make any adaptations or changes to make sure that the student is successful in that acceleration. One of the acceleration scenarios that I thought I would share is a student who is a current 3rd grade male student. He's accelerated to 4th grade ELA. His acceleration occurred as a single subject acceleration in ELA at the end of 1st grade, and we put it in place so that he would start the next school year with the new acceleration placement. He also, at the time, qualified for the math acceleration based on the data, but as we discussed in the meeting, his anxiety could have become an issue, and the parents wanted to make sure that he felt solid and secure in at least one area so that his anxiety wouldn't be too much and he wouldn't have to work too hard or struggle too much. So they felt like accelerating him in the strongest area, which was ELA, would work well, and then they would reassess each year about the other subject. So far, they've stayed with just the ELA acceleration, and the anxiety has subsided, but still has cropped up every now and again, so it's something we're monitoring. And as his case manager, I monitor that with him as well. He still requires enrichment in ELA, even with the acceleration, and then he still receives enrichment in math, of course, because he did not accelerate. So I do see him quite often throughout the week. And because of his schedule, it does require him to have some independent times in his base class where he's in the lower level, but doing independent work. So that is a time where I pull him for enrichment groups. In the area of acceleration, there is still some work left to do in our district to improve our procedures and policy. So my action plan is going to be focusing on the acceleration criteria. I feel like we need a rubric that kind of delineates cutoff scores based on the time of year. I feel like it should be graduated throughout the year, and that because if you test at the beginning of a year, I don't feel it should be the same cutoff score as if you test, say, at the end of the year. So that's something I want to address as I talk with assessment coordinator in the district, other gifted teachers and administrators, to maybe make that a little more clear. Also, we need to look at increasing the number of assessments given at specifically at K through 2. Some of our assessments we find are not maybe not giving accurate data, so we need to find some additional assessments and implement those to help with those decisions at the lower grade levels. Also, we need to make sure all the administrators are aware of any changes that we make, as well as continue to educate them about the policy so that they are consistent across the district in the implementation of our acceleration plan.
And then my acceleration action plan is going to revolve around the follow-up process after acceleration has been determined. What we have found in our policy and in looking over things is that we're accelerating, but then we're not really quite doing a bang-up job of following up. So I want to create some guidelines that the administrators are aware of, also create some checklists and some things that can be given to the teachers, the incoming teachers, the outgoing teachers, in order to follow up and just to make sure that the supports are in place and that the supports are happening, and if there is any issues that we're addressing those on a more formal basis than what we're doing right now. So that's what my plan will be wrapped around. So this concludes our overview of the acceleration and enrichment in our district. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us.